Hey, it's Harcourt from Paper, and today we're talking about flex layout. Flex layout is a way to automatically arrange an element based on its parent container and its sibling elements, as opposed to just placing it at a specific coordinate. You might have heard this concept called auto layout in Figma, and the reason we choose to call it flex layout in Paper is because that's what it's called in CSS. Paper's built on HTML CSS, and your agents and your developers will also use this CSS terminology, so figured we all might as well align with the term flex layout in Paper. Before we get into flex layout, let's spend 30 seconds talking about the relationship between a parent container or a frame and its children. In Paper, these parent containers are called frames. They're called divs in HTML. It's all the same concept. You can make this whatever size you want, or you can use one of our presets. Now let's say we also have these 3 rectangles. I'm holding down Option just to duplicate this and position where I want. And I could take all 3 of these and move them into my frame. Now these are all children of the frame. The frame is the parent of these 3 children, and each one of these children is siblings with the others because they all share the same parent. Now that these are all inside our frame, we can move our frame around and they all move as one. Because this frame is freeform and does not have flex layout, we can move any of the children anywhere we want inside the frame. You can always design freeform in Paper, but when you're designing software, or really anytime you want your layout to just snap together and automatically adjust when you add or remove layers, that's when you want to use flex layout. So let's get into that now and how we can start building with it in Paper. In Paper, I have an image and a text element on my canvas. We're going to start super basic and then build up from here. I'm going to select both of them, and we want to add these to a frame that has flex layout applied. I can do this either by clicking Wrap in Flex, this button here in the layout panel, or using the keyboard shortcut that's listed there, Shift A. Both will do the exact same thing. Now, these are both inside a frame with flex layout, and we can rename this either by double clicking on the canvas or from the layers panel. Let's just call this menu button. Now that we have flex layout applied and we have the parent frame selected, we have access to these flex layout properties. The first property we'll talk about is gap spacing, and there's 4 ways to do this, so I'm gonna rapid fire through it. First one is just to type in the value you want. Let's do 12. The second one is to use the arrow keys. You can just go up or down by 1, or if you wanna go up or down by 8, or whatever value you set in the nudge settings, then just hold down Shift and then go up or down. The other way to do this is to drag on this property. This is going to change the gap between the elements. And the last way is to do it on the canvas. And this is where you can also drag. There we go. I'm going to set it at 8 here. That's our gap spacing. Like I mentioned, this gap spacing is consistent for every element inside your parent frame. So let's add something else. I'm going to add in this SVG. Now I can just drag it into my parent frame, and you'll see both which frame I'm putting it in because of this blue outline, and also its position inside the frame because of the blue line. Right here, it's placing it in the middle, and you'll see 8 and 8. It's equidistant between the two with that same spacing. Now that this element is inside my parent frame, I can also change its order. So if I want it to be first, I can just drag it there. And I can also use my arrow keys, which I personally find a bit better. Let's move it all the way to the side. Now let's style this frame so it's usable in our dashboard UI. I'm gonna select the entire parent, and let's first add a fill color. I have my tokens. We're just gonna use muted here. Now, what's gonna make this look better is adding space between the content and the parent frame, and that is padding. So again, with the entire frame selected, we're gonna go over to these flex properties here, and now we can add horizontal padding. Let's do 8, and also some vertical padding. Let's also do 8 here. If we wanted each side to have individual padding, we can also toggle on individual padding, and then we can add in more bottom padding, less bottom padding, whatever we want here. I want everything to be consistent, so I'm going to untoggle that, and now we are just controlling left and right together and top and bottom together. Now I also want to add some radius here. Let's also add 8. Now let's talk about direction, which is probably the most visually obvious of all of the flex layout properties. By default, this frame has every child laid out side by side horizontally in a row. But you could change this so every child was laid out one on top of the other vertically in a column. To do this, we're just going to click this button with a downward arrow, and we can toggle back and forth between horizontal and vertical. As we change the direction, you'll notice that the element's order is still staying the same. It's always going to be the image first, and then the text element, and then the SVG. And if we change the order, again using our arrow keys, let's put the SVG first. Now when we change the direction back to horizontal, that order is going to be respected between the 2 directions. But let's go ahead and put that one last. Another way these elements are positioned relative to their parent frame is by their alignment. And so to demonstrate this, I'm going to take our frame and I'm going to resize it so it's much taller and much wider than what we actually need. You can change a frame's alignment using these 9 points on this 9-point grid. You can see you're aligned left and also center aligned vertically. But we could change this if we wanted to be left aligned but vertically aligned to the top, or left aligned but vertically aligned to the bottom. You go all the way through every single point on this 9-point grid to see which works best. Now, in this case, I want everything to be center aligned vertically. I know that, but I also want it to be all aligned to the left. Now that I've got my alignment set or reset for now, let's resize this. I can either drag my height to the exact height that I want to set a fixed value, or I can have my height be set by the height of my content inside. And we're gonna do this with a property called fit, which we'll talk more about later in this video. I can either set this height as fit from my panel, or I can double click on the top or bottom edge. That's also gonna set the height to fit, which again is just going to hug the contents inside. For the width, I want this to be a fixed value for now. Let's say 220. I'm just dragging on the canvas, but I could also set the width in the property panel over here. Now looking at this, I'm realizing that I want my SVG to be aligned to the right side. So we're gonna do that with a property called space between. I'm gonna select my entire frame, go back into my panel over here, and we're gonna do this in two different ways. First, we're gonna click on our settings and choose space between, or I can double click on my 9-point grid, and that's gonna do the same thing. Now it's going to fill the entire width of my parent frame, and it's gonna have equal space in between. But now this is also still not what I want because my text is in the center rather than being aligned on the left side. So to fix this, we're gonna create a nested frame inside our parent frame. We're gonna select both the image and also this text element by holding down Shift, and we're gonna group these in a frame that has flex layout. This is the same thing. We can either click this button, wrap and flex, or use the keyboard shortcut Shift A. Now we can adjust our gap spacing again. Let's just set this to be 8. And now these two are part of a frame and these two will move together. So if I reorder this, let's use my arrow key. Now these are gonna move to the side and the SVG is gonna be on the other side. Again, we want these to be on the left, SVG to be on the right. If we take a look at our layers list, you can see that this frame we just created, which maybe we wanna call user info, this frame is now a parent frame for the image and the text element, but it's also a child of that original parent frame menu button. And you can see that menu button has two children. One is this user info frame and the other one is the SVG. This is all nested frames. Now let's keep building this out. I want to add an email in addition to the name, and I want the email to go directly below the name. So let's paste this in, which I already have. And now I'm going to drag it in, not into the menu button frame, but instead into the user info frame. But now it has that flex layout. It's now going image, name, email. I want the email to go below, so I need to create another nested frame. Let's select the email and also hold down Shift to select that name. Again, let's use the keyboard shortcut Shift A to add these into a frame that has flex layout. And let's change the direction of this frame from horizontal to vertical. Let's also just remove that spacing so they're a little bit closer together. Now we have our menu button ready. Let's keep building our dashboard. Let's start with this left side menu. I want our menu button to be inside the menu. I want it to be all the way here at the bottom. And of course, when I drop it in, now because the entire menu frame has flex layout and is aligned to the top left, it's just going to also be aligned to the top left directly underneath these other children. So let's do the same thing we just did. Grab our entire frame, switch it to be space between, and now we're running into that same issue where we want this nav to still be aligned to the top. So let's grab the nav and the brand frame, Shift A, add those into a frame, adjust the gap spacing here to be 24, which it was before. And now we grab our parent frame, resize this however we want, and this child is always staying at the top and our menu button is always staying at the bottom, which is exactly what we want. Now let's talk about sizing. And there's several ways to do this in Paper. Some of them we've already touched on in this video. The first one is using a fixed size. So with my menu frame selected, I can resize it on the canvas. I can go into the layout panel and I could type in a property for the width, or I can use my arrow keys to choose the size that I want. I can set this to be whatever size I want, but no matter where this is in relation to anything else in my design, it's always gonna have a fixed width. But you can also size an element based on its parent frame and or its siblings, or you can resize a parent frame based on its children. And that's when you're gonna wanna use fit and fill. So let's talk through some examples of both of those. So if we look at our whole menu frame, this first child that we created earlier, and I've renamed navigation, this fits really nicely inside. It has equal padding on the left and the right. But if we resize our menu, let's say we just go up to 300, that's no longer the case. Now it's not fitting nicely and there's this weird gap on the right side. But if I wanted this child, our navigation child, to always fill up any of the unused space in its parent, I could set its width to be fill. And there's two ways to do this. First one is to go into the layout panel, into the width property, and set it to fill. The other way we could do that exact same thing is to hold down Option and then double click on the edge that you want to set to fill. So in this case, we double clicked on the right or the left edge. And now as I resize my menu, the whole parent, now that first child, the navigation, is also resizing. But that is not the case with our bottom menu button, which we already worked on. We could, of course, set this one's width to be fill and then everything would size at the same time. But what if I wanted my whole menu frame, I wanted that width to be based on the width of this child? Well, that's when we're gonna set the parent to fit. So let's try this out. Grab the full menu, this time set the width, instead of to be fixed, we wanna set that to be fit. And now, let's say we change the width of this child, menu button, let's maybe make this, we wouldn't do this, it's too big, but just to see, 300. Now, not only did the parent change its width based on that child, but the other child, the sibling element here, that had its width based on the parent, that also changed. So now everything is based on the width of this one child, and it's all responsive to this width changing. So we could continue doing this to build up an entire dashboard, which is what we've done here. And now, because we use Flex Layout for everything, everything scales nicely. And same with the content inside. It all is looking good. And this means that now anyone could look at this on, let's say, a MacBook Pro 14-inch, and it looks great. But someone else could look at the exact same thing on a MacBook Pro 16-inch, and it still looks just as good. That's one of the best things about using Flex Layout. Not only does it automatically handle your alignment and your spacing and make it super easy to reorder your layers, it also makes your designs responsive, which ensures that your designs that you work so hard on look so great for everyone who's viewing them. And it also makes your life much easier. Now, before we end this video, what happens when we have a frame that has Flex Layout applied, but we have an element inside that frame that we don't want to have to respect that Flex Layout? Well, that's when you're gonna use absolute position. Let me show you that quickly. This card has a close button, and I want this close button to be in the top right corner. So I'm going to select it, and we're going to take it out of this Flex Layout by turning on absolute position. Now it's just on top of all the other content, and I can place it wherever I want. Again, it's not being ruled by those Flex Layout properties that we've set. But I want it to be in the top right corner, so let's go ahead and just set it up here. Maybe I'm going to hold down Option so I can see how far away it is from the edges. Let's just do 16 points from the top and 16 points from the right. Now, when I resize this banner, I want that to always stay in the top right corner. But unfortunately, it's not doing that. To learn how to keep that button in the same position in the top right corner, no matter how the parent is resized, you're gonna wanna watch our next video on constraints. I've linked it below, go check it out, and thanks for watching this video.